Remember, the 5th of November, the Gunpowder Treason at Plot. I know of no reason why the Gunpowder Treason should ever be forgotten. Guy Fawkes and his companions did the scheme contrive to blow the kingdom apart, all alive. 80 hours lay below, to prove all England's overthrow. But by God's providence, him they did catch, with a dark lantern lighting a match. A stick, and a stake, for King James's sake. If you want to be one, I'll take 2. The better for me, and the worse for you. A rope, to hang the boat. A lump of cheese to choke him. A pint of beer to wash it down, and a jolly good fire to burn him. Always, make the bells ring. Always, God save the King.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. At about midnight on the night of November 4th, Sir Thomas Kimmet, a Justice of the Peace, found Guy Fawkes lurking in a cellar under the Parliament building and ordered the premises searched. Some 20-plus barrels of gunpowder were found, and Fawkes was taken into custody. During a torture session on the rack, Fawkes revealed that he was a participant in an English Catholic conspiracy to annihilate England's Protestant government and replace it with a Catholic monarchy. What became known as the Gunpowder Plot was organized by Robert Gaspee, an English Catholic whose father had been persecuted by Queen Elizabeth I. As November 5th of the Parliament approached, Gaspee enlisted more English Catholics into the conspiracy, and one of these, Francis Tresham, warned his brother-in-law, Lord Monteagle, not to attend the Parliament that day. Monteagle alerted the government, and hours before the attack was to have taken place, Fawkes and the explosives were found. By torturing Fawkes, the King James government learned of the identities of his co-conspirators. Early in the morning, King James of England learns that a plot to explode the Parliament building has been foiled, hours before he was scheduled to sit with the rest of his British government in a general parliamentary session. Guy Fawkes himself was sentenced along with the other surviving chief conspirators to be hanged, drawn, and quartered in London. Moments before the start of this gruesome execution on January 31st, 1606, he jumped from a ladder while climbing into the hanging platform, breaking his neck and dying instantly. Versions of the poem have been widespread in England for centuries. They celebrate the foiling of English Jesuit and Guy Fawkes' attempt to blow up the Protestant-controlled England's House of Parliament on November 5th, 1605. Known variously as Guy Fawkes Day, Gunpowder Treason Day, and Fireworks Night. The November 5th celebrations, in some time periods including the burning of the Pope, or a Guy Fawkes in effigy, a demonically inspired attempt to kill the king with his authorized King James Bible. James was a good man and king, allowing Protestants, Catholics, and Jews to practice their faith accordingly and without persecution, unlike Catholic contemporaries who were persecuting and killing Protestants. The British flag, known popularly as the Union Jack, originated in the reign of James, uniting both Scotland and England. In fact, the name Jack is a nickname derived from the James name. Now to address rumors that float around on the internet. Number 1, King James was not a Freemason. Rumors, that is, that James was initiated a Freemason in 1601. However, there is no solid evidence that James was ever a Mason at all. Not one single reliable source exists to support the idea. There are even good reasons why King James would have not been part of the lodge or craft at that time. Number 2, rumors of his supposed homosexuality. James and Queen Anne had several children together. only 3 of whom survived into adulthood. James was fiercely in love with Anne and wrote many poems and love letters to her throughout their marriage. Most of the rumors of James' sexual orientation came from Sir Anthony Weldon, 1583 to 1648, who was a bitter enemy of the king, whose writings were published long after James was dead. One of the most amusing quotes from King James regarding marriage and women was when at the Hampton Court Conference, the Puritan leaders complained of a line in the English wedding vows where the groom says to the bride, "With my body I thee worship." James' response was, "If you had a good wife yourself, you would think all worship and honor you could do her were well bestowed upon her." Indeed, it agreed with biblical command given in 1 Peter 3:7. James I, born June 19, 1566, Edinburgh Castle, Edinburgh, Scotland, died March 27, 1625. King of Scotland as James VI from 1567 to 1625, and first Stuart King of England from 1603 to 1625, became the first King of Great Britain. James was the only son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and her second husband, Henry Stuart. 8 months after James' birth, his father died when his house was destroyed by an explosion. His reign was important because it was the first time England and Scotland had the same monarch. He was the first monarch of England from the House of Stuart. The previous English monarch had been Elizabeth I. She had died without any children, so the English agreed to have a Scottish monarch because James was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and thus the closest relative Elizabeth had. By being king of both, he created a personal union. The young King James was kept fairly isolated, but was given good education until the age of 14. He studied Greek, French, and Latin before he was 12. King James helped people in England to study things such as science, literature, and art. King James is considered to have been one of the most intellectual individuals ever to sit on any English or Scottish throne. He is primarily remembered for authorizing the production of the King James Version of the Bible, the highly popular English translation from Greek and Hebrew. The King James Version of the Bible remains the most printed book in the history of the world, with over 1 billion copies in print. King James had nothing to do with translating the Bible, he merely authorized it. V for Vendetta is a 2005 dystopian political thriller, film directed by James McTee and written by the Wachowski brothers, based on the 19 DC Vertigo Comics limited series of the same name by Alan Moore and David Lloyd. V for Vendetta has been seen by many political groups as an allegory of oppression by government. Libertarians and anarchists have used it to promote their beliefs. David Lloyd stated, "The Guy Fawkes mask has now become a common brand and convenient placard to use in protest against any tyranny." And I'm happy with people using it. It seems quite unique and an icon of popular culture, being used this way. David Lloyd has stated that the character V decided to adopt the persona and mission of Guy Fawkes, our greatest historical revolutionary. Really? Hollywood has a habit of rewriting history without the truth. The truth is stranger than fiction. Quite the opposite of Hollywood's Wachowski brothers' version of the history of these events. Guy Fawkes and his 12 conspirators were Catholic Jesuits who couldn't stand the fact that Jew, Protestant, and Catholics could practice their faiths without tyranny from the crown, as decreed by the good King James, who was the first to unite the kingdom. These 13 men, by order of the Pope, were sent to blow up the king and much of the Parliament, so that a Catholic theocracy could sit on the throne and once again terrorize and kill Protestants and faithful Jews. In the midst of these facts, we must understand that, of all the plots and conspiracies that ever entered into the mind of man, the Gunpowder Plot stands preeminent in horror and wickedness. Ironically, centuries later, Fawkes is being regarded as the 30th greatest Briton according to a poll conducted by the BBC in 2002. Go figure. On the evening of November 5th, 1605, the relieved British subjects celebrated the king's good fortune by lighting bonfires throughout London. Parliament also rejoiced that they had been spared and passed an act that designated November 5th as the day of joyful deliverance. After the 1650s, fireworks were added to the nightly festivities. About 20 years later, the revelers began the tradition of burning effigies of the current Pope and Guy Fawkes, often constructed out of paper mache. But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. Genesis 50:20. For they intended evil against thee. They imagined a mischievous device which they are not able to perform. John Milton, December 9, 1608 to November 8, 1674, was an English poet and man of letters, and a civil servant for the Commonwealth of England under its control of state, and later under Oliver Cromwell. He wrote at a time of religious flux and political upheaval, and is best known for his epic poem, Paradise Lost, 1667. Another early poem in Latin is In Quintum Novembris, on the 5th of November, which Milton composed in 1626 at Cambridge. The poem celebrates the anniversary of the failed Gunpowder Plot of 1605. On the event's anniversary, university students typically compose poems that attack Roman Catholics for their involvement in treachery of this kind. The papacy and the Catholic nations of the continent also came under attack. Milton's poem includes two larger themes that would later inform Paradise Lost: that the evil perpetrated by sinful humankind may be counteracted by providence, and that God will bring greater goodness out of the evil. The tradition begins. The following year, in 1606, it became an annual custom for the king and parliament to commission a sermon to commemorate the event. Lancelot Andrewes delivered the first of many Gunpowder Plot sermons. This practice, together with the nursery rhyme and quote, ensured that this crime would never be forgotten. Hence the words to quote, "Remember, remember the 5th of November." The quote and poem is sometimes referred to as "Please to remember the 5th of November." It serves as a warning to each new generation that treason will never be forgotten. In England, the 5th of November is still commemorated each year with fireworks and bonfires, culminating with the burning of effigies of Guy Fawkes, the Guy, the Pope, and people chanting the quote of "Remember, remember the 5th of November." The guys are made by children filled with old clothes with crumpled newspapers to look like a man. Tradition allows British children to display their guys to passers-by and ask for a penny for the guy. The conspiracy for blowing up King James I in the House of Parliament on November 5, 1605. The plot was discovered, however, before any damage was done. The King James Version of the Bible, which is the highest of all Protestant endeavors, assuredly and solemnly remembered. For since that time, the 5th of November in England, like the 4th of July in America, has been devoted to fireworks.